Like that, like that. As you know, tea coffee station over there. You guys all know where toilets are? Yes? Yep.
Yes.
Just down the way there. There's a little kitchen down there as well. No, all good. How's everyone feeling in here, temperature-wise? Alright. It's quite muggy outside. Do you think I should leave the door open or?
Because people have gone back.
Yeah. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go if we can adjust.
Stop.
As needed. All right. Good morning. And welcome. So today we are covering off accessible parking permits, and we will also be covering off CPN permits. So today it's a nice little fairly short session. It's a 3-hour session. We'll basically split it into two. First half will be accessible parking permits, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll reconvene and finish off doing CPN permits. So, have you guys all had a look at the accessible parking permit portal before? Do you know what I mean when I refer to the accessible parking permit portal? Okay. So a lot of this is not going to be necessarily new for you, but we still will need to just go through the whole entire thing. And then we've got we've got a test environment that you guys can then jump in and play around with. So that's why I wanted to get you guys grouped together. Will, have you got a login for the accessible parking permit portal? Yes. And Jody, do you have the same? And Patrick, do you have the same?
Just log in now.
Yes. Thank you. Great. So the purpose of today's session is to just make sure that we've now got everyone over the full range of permits. So whenever anyone's working in the permits channel, it's no longer people doing just the counter side or people doing just the portal side. It's now you can do absolutely every part of the process. So that's what we're gearing you up for. How many of you have already been trained in, say, the introduction to APPs? You know, maybe what we would do on the phones, where we might just be, you know, looking at applications or advising about applications. Are you guys familiar with that at all? Yep.
Do you think it was ever like a formal training, like just doing it on the counter?
Yeah, I mean, just
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Covered it in the phone refresher.
Yes. Yep. Okay. All right. No, that's good. Well, what we'll do then, yeah, as I said, so we'll start off, we'll get back to basics. We'll run through the whole entire thing. As I said, we've got that test environment, so I'll get you guys to then log in a separate portal, but also keep that one portal that you've got open. But we do have a test environment with logins that you guys can go into, and there's lots and lots and lots in there for you guys to start processing. So you've got in the portal, you've got news, renews, replaces, etc. So we'll basically just have you guys then doing pretty much one of each, and you can just work together as teams, swap over, see how you go with it. I'll get the presentation up, but let me know if we will need to dim the lights. I think we might need to just a little. So, yeah, that's not hugely clear. Let me just dim these lights a little bit. Is that alright for everyone?
Yeah.
A little bit of mood light. Okie dokie. Let's jump in there. So, where am I? Okay. Okay, is that clear enough for everyone? Yep. Okay, beautiful. So, accessible parking permit training. We've now referred to them as APPs, accessible parking permits, not to be confused with asset protection permits, very, very different. They were in the past known as DPPs, disabled parking permits. Obviously, as we have sort of improved our accessible language, they have now become known as accessible parking permits. So So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the whole entire process to do with accessible parking permits. So we'll start off with a bit of an introduction. We'll look at how the new and the renew and the replacement applications come in and how we process them. And then we'll have a look at how we do then the manual applications that are then received in that hard copy form as well. So hopefully by the end of it, you guys will be experts in the APP space. This is by no means a difficult thing to process. And the beauty of this is that the system that this is actually using is not a council system. It's actually a Department of Transport / VicRoads. So it actually has absolutely nothing to do with us. So that's really, really nice. All we need to do is essentially process and approve. And that will then trigger off all kinds of different smarts and alerts in the background to keep the customer updated with the status of their application. So we'll have a look at what they look like as well. So, the basics. Disability parking scheme is now becoming accessible. It's hosted by the Department of Transport, no longer VicRoads. So, Department of Transport look after more so the policy side, and VicRoads look after the registration and licensing side. So they are still together. It's just that this part is administered by the Department of Transport itself. The application guidelines and even the permits themselves have been updated to reflect some of the new rules, and there have been quite a few changes that have come into play with the accessible parking scheme. So, APP permits will be sent upon renewal, replacement, and new applications. The old permits will remain current until they expire or are lost or damaged. So what that means is we are in a bit of a hybrid state at the moment where we have some permits that are still DPPs that might have been issued back out in 2020, 2021. They're still existing in the system and they're still active and current. A lot of the others though have now already transitioned over here. So their permit expired, they had to go and renew it. And as part of the renewal, they were then advised that they now needed to do it through the VicRoads portal, or through the Department of Transport portal. So what we're finding now is that we should now be reducing the amount of active permits that are existing in PNR to the point where we will have no more permits existing in PNR. Every single one of them will be cancelled and everyone will have transferred over to the DOT portal. The permits are not printed on site. The Department of Transport have their own printing house. They will be delivered by registered post to either the applicant's home address or to council to pick up, and the applicant can actually select where they actually want it to go. So what's new? We actually now have temporary permits for 6, 12 or 24 months. So we've never had temporary permits before. So this is a great change. For those of you that were familiar with the history of accessible parking permit, people got very frustrated when they had to go in for a hip replacement or knee surgery or something like that. And there weren't any options available for them. They were just simply not available, not eligible. That's now changed. So we can now issue out temporary permits, 6, 12 or 24 months. The permit length has also increased, so it's no longer just 3 years, we are actually now right up to 5 years. There is now also a permanent disability classification, so it just means that reassessments do not actually have to take place. I know, right? And that was a big frustration for a lot of people, particularly when you are elderly and you have a permanent disability, having to go to the doctor every 3 years just to validate that you're still alive, you've still got a permanent disability. That's really not a good customer experience.
It was terrible. Like I had a lady with some of the cerebral palsy.
Going all,
It was like 9. And
Yes.
It's like,
It's- It's heartbreaking, isn't it? When
So to have that they don't have to go back and prove.
They do still have to go the first time with the new portal though.
Yes.
Yes. They had one from us previously.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's absolutely correct.
Get a lot of frustrated people in the council.
Yeah, quite right. Quite right. You guys would have definitely experienced it firsthand. I know I have quite a lot when I was there on campus. So this is a really great update. The new permanent disability classification is in place now. It's now also a new single and secure statewide permit design. So it is now eligible to be used statewide. We still would recommend if people are travelling interstate that they would still check with the council that they're going to, just to see what that council will honour in terms of the parking.
Federal, it's just.
That's correct. Yeah. So when we have a look at the permit, you'll actually see that it states on there issued in Victoria, which means that so you'll have all of the eligibility right across Victoria now, but travelling interstate, there might be some changes. Just be aware of that. We now also include occupational therapists as an assessor in addition to a GP. So that person that has had that knee surgery, and they're not seeing a GP, they're actually seeing an occupational therapist that's helping them get the mobility back. So we are now accepting that as an assessment as well, which is another really good outcome, because before it was strictly GP, which meant that people had to go and do it every time.
And now that they're costing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not hard to
Yes.
get both of them.
Yeah,
They're saying,
quite right.
they're complaining and saying, well, I've just been to my GP and now you're going to make me pay again.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
I think veterans will pay.
Oh, don't they?
GPs.
Okay.
And the double time green permits and permits for orgs will also continue under the scheme. So this is what they look like. So on the left, that's your permanent one. So that's your full disability permit. So that will obviously provide access then to all of the key disabled mark bays. And then you've got that double time accessible parking permit as well. You'll see that you've got the VIC and then the number at the top, that's basically the permit number. You've got the expiry date underneath that, and you'll see on the left hand side, just under the little Australia, that it does actually state issued in Victoria. So a category 1 permit holder, the pinky purple one, they are entitled to park in a vehicle in a reserved disability parking bay for the time displayed on the parking sign. They're also allowed to park a vehicle in any ordinary parking bay for twice as long as the time displayed. Now, there is one point that I do want to just clarify, and that is whether or not disabled parking permits, whether a person is required to actually pay the fee, if it is a paid parking area, to then become eligible for that double time benefit. I know that that has been in the past, so that's something I will just clarify after this session to make sure that that's really clear. You've got the category 2 permit, which is the green one on the right. This means that a permit holder is entitled to park in a vehicle in an ordinary parking bay for twice as long as the time displayed on the parking sign. It's only valid in Victoria. Therefore, if they're using that, again, check with the council that you're travelling to if you're going interstate. Temporary parking permits are now able to be issued for a shorter time period, and organisations who meet the eligibility criteria are required to complete a separate application form, and they are required to resubmit every single year.
I haven't seen one. Has anyone seen a temporary one yet?
No,
It looks the same.
Does it?
Yeah, and it just has a 6-month expiry date.
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you don't
check
you
it.
only know it from the expiry date.
Right, yeah, okay. So
It should look exactly the same.
Right,
Yeah, it's the purpley blue.
okay.
So your permit codes, code A for a driver who has a permanent ambulatory disability, an acute chronic illness, or a significant intellectual disability. Your code B is for a passenger. Your code C is for a driver or passenger. The code D is now the organisation code. Good thing to note for things like a code A, if you've got that person as a code, or I should say actually for a code B, where you've got that passenger, it's the passenger that actually needs to be entering and exiting the vehicle if that vehicle is going to be parked in a disability parking bay. Because it's the passenger that needs the extra space. If they're travelling with a carer, and it's the carer that's simply going and doing the errands on behalf of them, and it's only the carer that's getting out, they don't need that parking space. They can go and park in a normal parking bay. So, if we're looking at a code B, we are wanting to make sure that that passenger is actually the one that's entering and exiting the vehicle. And if not, they can be fined. So we do enforce those kind of regulations.
Sorry, my bad, no, where's the code on it?
Oh, it says big, and then the first X will be.
Yeah, it'll be mentioned
Oh,
in here.
okay, right.
Yeah, so it's part of it. I don't think I have an image though that actually shows the full one. Joe, have a look when you get
Yeah,
back
I've
to the
just
town.
taken notice.
So, how does the online system work? So it's really quite simple. You've got the applicant which will actually do a self-assessment online. So they will actually start up the application, and based on questions that they would answer at the time, there is an automated approval built into the system. So based on what they put in, they will enter their personal details. Once completed and approved, they will then receive a reference number via SMS. The medical practitioner then needs to recall the applicant details. So they still need to access a GP, and the GP will access the portal. They will use that reference number, and they will bring up the application, and they will then fill in their assessment. So you've got the applicant doing it themselves to a point, then they go to the GP to finish off that medical assessment. The medical assessment, we'll go through some of the questions in a moment so you can see what they look like, but this is where we're going to start to gauge the requirement of the kind of permit that the person needs. Once the medical practitioner is done, they will finalise it, and then it will then come to us to review and approve. Organisations will log straight in, and it will automatically come to their associated council. So the functional assessments, this is sort of what it looks like. So there are a series of questions which will determine the eligibility for a permit, but also the kind of permit that the customer will receive. So you'll see here the assessment questions. Does the patient hold a driver's licence or learner permit? Automatically we're looking at driver/passenger. Does the patient have a significant mobility impairment such they are required to use a mobility aid or device? And then a parking bay not designed for people with disabilities is insufficient in size to allow them access to and from their vehicle. That's probably the kicker. That's the key one. So if they require that larger parking bay, usually because they will also use some kind of mobility device. And when we say mobility device, you'll see that there is actually a little note at the bottom there. Mobility aid or device, it does mean an aid which has more than one contact point with the ground. So such as a pair of crutches, a walking frame, a walking stick, with 3 or more feet, not just a single point walking stick. That's not considered a mobility aid. So keep that in mind, and often if you're thinking about a walking frame, to get the person out of the car and into the walking frame, that door needs to be way wide open. So automatically you can start to see why that person would need it. So as we move along, you'll see that it might get to the point though where, based on the filling in of this form, the assessment, it might come back that they're actually only given a double time permit, and people can get very upset about that because they want the full one. So that's where it's great to be able to look at these functional assessment questions, because then we can actually advise the customer, you can resubmit your application. As part of the functional assessment questions, they are there to determine what kind of a permit you would be eligible for. So therefore, read the questions carefully, because they will itemise whether or not you require the additional space of a disabled parking permit bank. And if that's the case, make sure you're following suit. We can't tell them exactly what to do, but you can certainly guide them in a sense, in a way. So you'll see that we've got more questions here. So if the mobility aid, it does ask us to specify. Does the patient require continuous supervision of a carer to help them get in and out of the vehicle? And then describe the patient's ability to walk. And then approximately how long will the patient's mobility impairment last? So you'll see, does the patient require, the patient's ability to walk. Walking up to 100 metres causes the patient to stop several times. That's also what we'd be looking for, because as you know, your disabled parking bays are usually the closest ones to an entrance, and therefore it's going to minimise the amount of distance that person has to walk. So you've got these then different questions that will then be filled in by the GP or the OT. In terms of communication, there's some really good built-in SMS reminders and things and notifications, so it's pretty much automated. So a customer will receive a text when an outcome has been decided on their permit. If it's declined, they will receive the notification, and they will also receive a further formal letter. When it's time to pick up a permit at council, so when we have acknowledged that it's been received in, that process will also then trigger off an SMS to the customer to say, hey, your permit's now ready at council, you can now come in and pick it up. and also just reminders to pick up at the council if we haven't actually heard from them.
I've had a couple come in when they've received it, the outcome.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm ready to pick up a permit.
Mhm.
And it's just been approved, like still.
Yeah,
not
you gotta
ready.
wait, yeah.
They get so
Oh,
confused
got
with the
you.
text messages that come
Got
through
you.
saying your permit's been approved.
As
They
opposed to
come
your
into-
permit's ready for
yeah.
collection. Right. Ah, okay. No, that's really good to know.
And then you're looking for it,
Yes.
it's not like.
Yeah, because I'm not 100% sure what the SMS,
Yeah, I'd love
how
to
the
see what
SMS
it actually
message is
says,
formatted.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it probably isn't.
So, disputed outcomes, again, we really don't have anything to do with it. We can advise the customer that it is based on the outcome of the functionality assessment. So, again, look at the questions carefully, think about what they would be telling someone who would be approving an application. That's how we can sort of guide the customer through it if they're not happy with the outcome. If they go through it and they're really not happy with the outcome, they are still going straight through to the Department of Transport. We can't escalate it, we can't do the reviews, it's all built into the system, it's essentially automated. So it makes it really easy for us. You'll see here though, the applicant has been assessed as eligible for a different permit type to their first assessment. So then they can just come and pick it up if they've changed. The applicant who was not eligible has been assessed as eligible. So the applicant will then receive the permit in the mail. Advise to contact council with any questions. If the applicant is still not eligible and receives a second letter advising they are not eligible, this actually says if following submission of a second application with a different medical practitioner, you are still unsatisfied with the outcome, you may raise a query with your local council for an explanation of the outcome. We may not necessarily have much information because it's actually all put into the system. The next steps though would be escalated through to the Department of Transport. So if we can't provide any additional information as to why that was potentially declined, then we would refer them straight through to the Department of Transport. We won't do anything more with it.
Can I just confirm then, Bo, so if Jody goes to Dr. Bo and
Yes.
you say you only double time, can Jody go back to Dr. Bo and say, can you change that to, or do you have to go to a different GP?
We'd be recommending that you go to a different GP because you've got a GP that's already assessing you in one way. So therefore, it would almost be a bit weird if you're doing the
If they
same thing
change
with a
their
doctor and then
mind.
suddenly they've changed their mind and they've just changed it, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why I think it did mention before that they would
Has
be
to
needing
go
to
to-
see it as
okay,
a
no.
different GP or an OT.
Why does it refer them to council if we don't have the information?
We will have probably initial information and we'll be able to potentially look at the functional assessment and we'd be able to say, look, based on the outcome of the functional assessment, you were deemed ineligible. There are criteria that the functional assessment basically establishes eligibility. Therefore, go back and review it. That's when we can start to do that. If it's declined, the same kind of thing will probably need to be said, but the referral point will be the Department of Transport. We can't escalate it, we can't change a decision because it's all automated within the system.
And we don't talk about this.
No, Department of Transport only. So there's all of these different kind of disputed outcomes. We just need to know the ultimate escalation point, which is Department of Transport. We're going to advise as much as we can. We're going to advise that customer if they were ineligible that they can do that second application. If the second application is still declined and they're still unhappy about it, then they do need to refer through to the Department of Transport for a deeper explanation. So I'm just going to skip through. So what we're looking at here, we basically have a few different areas that we obviously cover. So we've got obviously the phone inquiries, so just generic information, advice on the status of an application, and directing customers to the website for applications and resources. You've got the actual permits team, which will now be you guys, to assess, approve applications, review denied applications, and get them sent off for printing. And at the counter, you'll be taking those paper applications, coordinating pickups, assessing organisation permits, and supporting documents and pickups. So, new applications. So in theory, these should be brand new. They have no recent history in either our existing database, which is PNR, or the new APP portal. This is not though always the case. The portal will check its records for duplicates, so that's actually a really good thing there. We will also need to make sure that we are checking PNR for any records there, just to make sure 100% there are absolutely no duplicates. The nice thing is the DOT portal, that's pretty much automated, so it'll automatically say, oh yeah, no duplicates found. We will still need to check ours, just in case. So, I've got a document that you guys will get after the presentation, which is an overview, and that will it contains all of these flowcharts, which will show you what actually takes place through each different kind of application, whether it's a new or a renew, etc. So for example, applications pushed from the medical practitioner online form. If they've failed the functional assessment, it will go down that way. If it's successful, if the applicant's home address is in the council area, if it is, we'll need to do a duplicate check for both local and online systems. If it's not a duplicate, we can approve the application, submit it, and then the permit automatically generates at the mail house and then sent to the applicant or to council to pick up, depending on what they're specified. So that's best case scenario. We know what happens in the worst case scenario. So I'm going to skip through the flowcharts, but we'll just give at least an introduction to each area. So the renew applications, these are ones that will be either expired or close to expiring in the portal or in PNR. Pre-COVID, it was standard to allow for around a 3-month lapse for a renewal. It blew out, if you like, to around 6 months. And we're probably still starting to see some of those effects in place. So I think I actually had a renew in the portal, which was actually, I think, 6 months and 2 days, and it's still allowed to go through. So there is now that extended period of time for a lapsed permit. If it exists in PNR, we will need to ensure that it's marked off in the system, so we need to mark it out as closed, and we need to advise what's taken place. So we'll obviously need to leave that note in the instruction field or in the notes field on the permit, and then we just close it out. And there is also a reason code in there to say why we've actually closed it, to say that it's now been logged onto the DOT portal. That's the renew flow, just skip through that. Replacements. Now, a replacement does require a customer to collect their permit from the counter and provide either the stat deck or a police report that indicates that the permit was either lost, damaged, or stolen.
Do we have ones that are lost in the mail? Is that, if we're sending it to their house?
It's possible.
It is.
It is possible, yeah. In which case, then we would be advising if they haven't received it within a timely manner that they are actually then going and doing a replacement. And it would probably take.
Or a flat parking fee.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. You know, essentially a permit's a permit in terms of parking. You know, very similar criteria apply.
But they don't have to pay.
No, that's a good point. Now, this is also an interesting point here for organisation applications. So an organisation may be eligible if it's recognised by council as providing transport for people with significant mobility, cognitive, behavioural, neurological impairments, etc. So our community buses, for example, they will be issued with an organisation permit. To determine the number of permits though that an organisation is eligible for, we look at the number of drivers versus vehicles. So whichever number is smaller is the number of permits they are entitled to. So you have a vehicle, so 5 vehicles with 2 drivers. You can only have 2 of those vehicles on the road at any time, therefore you are only eligible for 2 permits. So the logic, as you see, 2 drivers cannot drive 5 vehicles. So it is limited to the amount of drivers that the organisation will have. The language between new, renew and replace can also really be confusing for the customer. So we might have an application that's come in, it might come in as a renew, when the customer actually is wanting to replace, or vice versa. They're saying, oh look, my permit's expired, so I need a replacement. Actually, they need to do a renew. So that can be a little confusing for people. So things to consider, customer may put in a new application, but despite needing to renew an existing. So if we look at the flows, they still complete the same steps, get that functional assessment done. Selecting a replacement when they mean new or renew does not require a functional assessment, so it cannot be viewed in the same way. So the process, you've got the new, renew, replace, and the organisation. I'm not going to go into these either because When you jump into it, you'll see exactly what this is all about, and you'll actually be trying it firsthand. So we don't need to go over this, but you will also have an expanded document that will have all of the different descriptions and a fuller explanation of everything. Just to show you what it does, this will then link out to these documents where you've got new applications, and this is a step-by-step guide. So this is what we'll be submitting through to you guys to make sure that you've got absolutely everything you need to do what you need to do. This is a really great guide. It's absolutely step-by-step, really clear images, so it's really
Where
well
was it?
put together. It's actually it's in the slide pack at the moment,
Oh, okay.
but I'll send you guys links out to the document so you
That's
might.
not in Atlas.
Should actually be an atlas. I believe it is.
Let me check.
I believe it is. Yeah, thanks, Jackie. So, again, part of the process here that we do need to check for duplicates. There are still current permits in PNR, so we do need to do that due diligence when those applications are coming through. If there's an outcome dispute, their first course of action is to submit a second application, view the original permit application and compare with the recent. So example, a customer has been approved for a double time permit when they were seeking a full permit. They are within their rights to reapply, focus on the questions to try and get the eligibility changed. Multiple permits. It is quite common for multiple people within a family or a household to have a permit each. So it can be quite common when doing renewals to see a potentially duplicate application. But, so a husband and wife might have a permit each. They submit permits for renewal using the same DP number or in the husband's name. So we really need to be making sure that we're really paying attention to detail when we're checking off those details and validating and verifying. Customs aren't training permits, so again, that new, renew, replace, it doesn't really make that much to them. They may put in for a renewal and a replacement, so we need to look closely at the expiry date to determine what's actually going on there and what's most likely. So sometimes there is a bit of an investigation that does need to take place here to sort of determine, oh, hang on a sec, I don't think the customer's actually submitted it correctly. What are they actually needing? What do I need to do to actually get this actioned? So just be aware of that as well. You'll see how that applies when you start to go through some of the applications. And as everything, if in doubt, call the customer. Pick up the phone, do it. So when we're updating PNR, so whilst we're still sort of transitioning, so to speak, we are still going to have these permits existing in PNR. So we need to then look up the DPP number. And if there is one that's in the VicRoads portal, if someone's renewing an existing permit, they might be having a DPP in the application, and that will then be given a new reference number, and they'll then be transitioning over. So it might be that we actually get the application and they've gone, oh yeah, I'm renewing an old one, which is referenced in the application form as DPP, so we will see it, and then we can use that to continue to validate it. So we can say, yes, that was in our system, they can now move over to the new system. Which means that we're then looking to change their statuses here. So we'll be changing that current to past, and this stage decision will now be VicRoads processing sample part. So it's now gone to, that's a bit misleading, being VicRoads, we're making the reference to the Department of Transport. Yes, so that was a slight hiccup in the formatting when this was put into PNR. Shouldn't read as VicRoads, however. So there is that stage decision as well. So we'll be marking the status as now passed, the stage decision going into VicRoads, and we'd ideally be wanting to look at some kind of a reference number. So if you've got the permit number that's been generated in the OPP portal, copy it into PNR so that we've got the record of what's happened to it. So you've then now got the CRM component. So the accessible parking dashboard, this will be part of your bread and butter working in permits. So you'll be working off both the portal and from CRM. Obviously CRM is going to have our paper-based documents. So they're going to become our manual applications, and we'll have a look at what they look like in just a minute. So has everyone seen the Customer Connect Accessible Parking Permit dashboard?
I don't have access to the top part.
You may or may not, but certainly by the end of today's session you will, because I will make sure you
So
have
just the,
access.
Atlas, would it be under the additional resources?
It might be under the additional resources.
That's where all the other permits are, so, yeah, it should be fine.
So
Make sure you have to-
make sure you guys have got it.
Thank you.
There are actually a series of links in the meeting invite. So you've actually got quite a few different links in there, including a link to the Canva presentation. There's also a link out to the skip bin manual in there, as well as the skip bin presentation. So there are also some additional resources in there, which will certainly help out. So you can access those perhaps in the first instance, but I will make sure you do get that full step-by-step guide, because that's probably the best. So we have here the CC Accessible Parking Permits dashboard. So you'll see here that we've now got these 5 applications here. These are unassigned but active, so no one's looked at them yet. So these are the ones that we're going to be working from. You'll see here we've got an assigned active. This is one that Joanne's working on. So ideally what we're looking at then would be one of these. So obviously the first thing you're going to do when you're processing one in CRM, you're going to be assigning the case to yourself. And at least that way no one else is obviously processing what you do. Let's just have a quick look at what the documentation will look like. So you'll see we've got a renewal, and this is what it looks like. So this is the application form. This is essentially exactly as it is on the actual Department of Transport website. It's just a hard copy format. So you'll see we've got details in here. We've got the email, mobile number. They hold a driver's license. You'll see here, send to applicant address. You do need to just be aware of that, because that does come up shortly when we need to actually go in and then process this as a manual application. You'll see here, current permit details. Issuing council, City of Monash. And it was this category 1. So they actually had one from Monash. They've now potentially moved in to the area. So they're now needing to actually do this one here. All signed off, done. All of that's there. We've also got this information here which we need. We now refer and use these. So this is called the AHPRA, so it's the Australian Health Practitioners Registry Association or something like that. It just keeps a register of every single registered medical practitioner practicing in Victoria. So every application will require sign off with that MED number, because that's how we can validate that they are a registered GP or an OT. All of them will have a medical reference number as they're part of their registration.
So even the OTs have one?
Yep, should do, yeah. Because they're still considered a form of a medical practitioner, so. And there's additional information here. So you've got these assessment questions now. Have you verified the patient's identity? Do they passenger only? So you'll see how it reflects exactly the same as it does on the portal, as it does onto the form. Same but different. We just need to process these a little differently. So this is it. Got it all done. And you can see that we've got a reference here. So essentially, what has now taken place is we've now got a partially completed or a partially entered application, and we now need to go through and actually finalise the whole entire thing. So we will be going in and we will actually be completing the functional assessment part, because we've only got it in writing from the doctor, but we've got it signed off and validated. So rather than the doctor recalling the application, going through the assessment questions and then finalising it that way, we will actually be doing even more. So we will actually now be taking that information, we'll be putting it into there, then we'll be validating it and doing all of that.
So usually we get them without that last page though. So they've been to the doctor filled their part out, and then they've just
Yep.
given it to us. So you don't necessarily need a code.
What it means is though that they've potentially done the applicant part. So they've
customer
gone in,
themselves.
yeah, so they've gone in and they've at least done the applicant, and as part of that they've said, oh yeah, you're eligible. So they've been given a code,
Right.
but they've done a paper format. So they've gone to the doctor and they've actually just done the paper application, and the doctor hasn't used that to recall it, and they haven't filled it in, they've strictly just filled in the paper format. So we're going to step in, and we're going to become the role of the OT, and we're actually going to recall it, and we're going to fill in everything that that OT or GP has already put into the application form. They've just handwritten it in.
Do we know the stats, and this is just broad, but how many doctors do it just online, they go to the doctor, they just do it online themselves, and how many come to us just to pay?
Is there a push to make more doctors do it online? Do they?
We
Oh,
encourage the
absolutely.
customers when they come in, we say,
Absolutely, yeah.
here's a hard copy, but you can also, your doctor might just log in and do it themselves.
The preference would be absolutely to get people directed through to their GP or OT. Obviously, there are going to be those times though where that person just said, I just want a paper copy.
Yeah.
Just give me a hard copy. Most doctors should know about this. There obviously will be some though that might not be so familiar with it, and so therefore they're happy to just sign off on a form, and that's it. That's their part still done. They've still signed off on it all. I suppose it depends on also on potentially on the GP. So when we're working from CRM, we'll need to assign those to ourselves, and then we'll be using the information in the document, jumping in, processing the application, and obviously what we'll need to do then, like we do with all of our other permits and things like that, once we've actioned it, we're cross-referencing. So, into the CRM case, we've got the permit number. Resolve. If it's a DPP, we're in PNR, we've now also got the new permit number, and we've also marked it off as being passed, and we've also got the proposed decision in there to say that it's now in the portal. So wherever we are, whether we're working from CRM doing a manual form or in the portal doing an automated form, we still need to be cross-referencing wherever we need to. So it might just be just marking off in PNR, it might actually be resolving cases CRM and cross-referencing there. This is what the manual form looks like. As you can see, they are available to a customer from the counter or via email, so we will have our phone staff that might actually send these out, email these off to a customer. The paper version completes everything of the digital form, but it does require then a permit officer to then read and transcribe that information into a digital application. So that's what I was just referring to. We do try to encourage residents to use the digital form wherever possible, and remind them that their GP can actually fill out all of their detail on their behalf, and they can do it straight into the portal. The best thing about that is it means they will get it quicker because it's approved on the spot. Rather than that manual form having to come to us, we then need to go through our processes, CRM, etc. That can take 24, 48, 72 hours maybe. So best thing.
It's in your best interest.
It's in your best interest to do it online, absolutely, because you will get it so much quicker.
If the GP does it online, can they still request to have it picked up from council?
Yep. So what happens then, once you're actually in an application on the portal, it will then actually lock. So it will become exclusive to you, so no one else can actually access it or do anything with it. They can view it, but can't process it. So that's a really nice thing there. There's only two ways though to unlock one. The original staff member opens it up again and continues, or we can arrange to have them released. We'll have a look at what they look like shortly. Declined applications can happen at 3 points. So when the eligibility questions at the start of the process, so when that customer's first logging that application, or when the GP or OT completes the functional assessment, or by the permits team if we determine that it's actually a duplicate, or if there's something a bit dodgy going on. So, whilst most permits are resolved on the spot with any complex cases, it is important just to add some notes in there if there is an issue that you might have needed to reach out and contact the customer, provide some history in there. Make sure you've got those notes updated in there. There are multiple opportunities to add notes during the permit approval stage, even just by looking up the customer and adding notes in that way. So ensure any time you attempt to make contact with a customer that you do leave that note in the system. In saying that, when you are writing notes, also make sure you check. Difficult inquiries, accessible parking can get a little tricky. We have got a lot of resources though that can help. So you've got the permits chat, you've got your team leaders, and you've got us as the training and quality team. We are all fully trained right across all of the permits, so any questions that you have, we can certainly help. But please reach out to perhaps your team leader or the permits chat in the first everybody in the permits chat, as you know, are really, really helpful. So, a lovely group.
It's a lovely group, but it hasn't been used as much, that chat, since Amy left. Lisa doesn't use it.
No, I
So
have
it's
noticed
sort of
that.
died.
But
You put
that's
stuff
good,
in
no,
there.
but it's good
and
to see that you guys are still using it though where you need to. It's just that also a lot of you guys are now so capable, you don't need it. So,
Yeah, when you put a question in there, sometimes it just doesn't get answered. Everybody looks at it.
I have noticed that as well. Yeah.
It's great.
I know. So that's essentially now taking us through the whole entire process, what it looks like. Now we need to get in and actually start having a bit of a play around. So let's get out of that and let's get into this one. In fact, so you see City of Casey, this is our test environment. So, we're gonna have a look, we can see we've got new, so let's have a look at what these look like. Clearly, organisation, individual, I think the blue ones are ones that are locked. So I'm just gonna skip through a bit, and I'm just gonna pick this one up. So this is what it looks like. So we're gonna be doing the same thing if we were on our own City of Burundara portal. It's gonna be exactly the same thing, determining whether it's a new, renew, or replace. So when they're going through and they're providing their address, it's got an automatic lookup, and it actually asks them to select what their local council is. So you'll see also here we have an application source. So you'll see manual, digital, GPOT, digital. So, we've got this permit in here, we can set it to new. I've got a customer in here, set in September 1975, contact, yep, City of Casey, local council. So, this is a test. Helen is in the City of Casey. So, yes, this address is in my council's area. You'll be obviously associating the address, making sure that it's actually a Burundara address for our purposes. But for the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to hit next. And it's processing. And it's still processing. And it's still processing. Okay. So it's now brought us through here. So we're now assessing the new application. The medical practitioner has a valid AHPRA registration, and we can see it there, the MED. That's what we need to confirm. And you'll see practice name, blah, 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 blah. So we can actually just hit next.
If it didn't have that, what would it say?
That
Does the
you
portal tell us that
wouldn't-
it's not valid, or
You wouldn't get to that point.
we wouldn't?
No, because it's an automatic validation within the system.
Cool.
So that would be putting it in there, that would be getting error messages to say that's not a valid AHPRA registration number, so it wouldn't allow them to continue.
When you was verifying council, if you press no, as in the suburb wasn't in the council, what happens?
It actually brings up to say, well, where do you need to redirect it to? And it will actually give you then a list of other councils, so those addresses.
Two options were like yes or no, I need to resign.
Yes, yeah, and you'll reassign it to another council, and it will appear in there. Dashboard. Easy. So obviously the key ones for us will be those pockets of Mont Albert / Surrey Hills where we do border with Whitehorse. You can certainly redirect it to Whitehorse. There is one road, I think it's called Carlisle Road. One side of the road is Burundara, the other side is Whitehorse. It's really confusing.
Yeah, there's another one too, in, Surrey Hills and Mont Albert with the train station around there.
Yes, yes, there is. Yeah.
It's like
Quite a lot.
Benares, it's still in.
Oh, Benares, yes, absolutely. Okay, so what we'll be doing here, we'll be checking. Is this a duplicate application? It's saying, I've got no duplicates found in this system. We would need to be going into our system and making sure that we don't have any duplicates as well. So we'll be going, no, this is not a duplicate. So I'm going to approve the application. As soon as I hit next, magic happens. Well, not yet. It's coming. But it now gives us a little summary, so it's saying you are approving we're issuing out a code C, it's going out for 12 months, it's got an expiry date of the 3rd of October 2024. This is where we'll need to determine what's going to take place. So we had a look before and I went, yep, send it to my home, send it, so we're going to say, no, send it to the applicant's residential address and submit.
I have a question.
Yes?
The bad habit of not writing that down and getting to the last step in other permits, is
Yep.
there a way to go back and check?
I don't believe there is. Oh, you can still skip back.
Oh, okay.
But that's a good question. Let's see. if we can
Otherwise, should
actually-
I write it down?
That's why I said, pay attention to when you're looking at the application
Pay
form.
attention.
Because you get the manual
Is that
form,
right?
but on the manual form, you can actually see it. So you can actually look in CRM and you can see it there. Here, we don't necessarily see the full application. So
That's
we
a good
don't,
idea to write that bit down.
as you go through.
That's-
So let's have a quick look at a renew, and then I'm gonna get you guys to jump in and do some. Let's look at Liliana here. Okay, so she's got one from Ararat, but she's now moved into Helen.
I would say no.
So Helen is now in our council area, so we'll say yes. And you'll see here, to verify this renewal, you need to have the current permit details. So, we do. We've got the permit number. For us, we'd be looking at the DPP. Do you have the current permit details? Yes, I have. Is the expiry date correct? Well, just say, yes it is.
Where is the?
I can't validate it, come on. But for the purposes of the demonstration, yes it is.
Where does it contact the issuing council? Do we call them or is there an email? How do we get in contact with them?
You can simply call them, absolutely, and write the note on the application to say, try to contact to validate that there was an existing permit, issued out in that person's name, and therefore we can actually go ahead and continue doing that. So if there's any uncertainty, call the customer, find out what you need. Here we've got all their details here. We know that she's now the permit holder, so I can say yes, they are the permit holder. I can just hit next. Medical practitioner's been verified, great, next. No duplicates found in the system, awesome. Have we got any hours? We need to check. No, this is not a duplicate. Yes, approve this application. Next. You are approving this application. We can select here. You'll see here, notification will be delivered to Casey, to the applicant's residential address. We'll send all of there. So obviously, if we've got a renewal, we are going to want to see a permit number. They will have to have a permit number in there for us to actually be able to renew that. Otherwise, it's either going to be a new or a replace, depending what's going on. So you'll see how we've now got a permit and that permit number. So once this has been put through, this is what you can potentially cross-reference if you need to into another system. So as this renewed, as a renewal, it might be that we're actually now transitioning from our system into this system, which means we're now going into PNR, we're now making that existing permit passed, and we are making that status decision as being Department of Transport, or Big Roads, sorry. And then simply just coming back to the dashboard. So I think you'll see that when you start working through this, it's actually really quite simple. There is one thing though that I do need to show you, and that will be for those manual forms. So let's have a look at those, because you can see from here, a lot of this is really automated, it's really easy to follow and prompt. We might just be needing to cross-reference with some of our systems. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to jump into one of ours, and I'm going to have a look at this one here as a manual application. In fact, I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump in and do this one. No, actually, I don't want that one. Let's go and do this one. Oh, there you go, Jodie. We'll give this.
Did I?
Registered.
Your name's all over it.
And so you go, have a look at this one. This would be a request for validation.
Oh, I registered it, yes. But yeah, no, this is, yeah.
Oh, there you go. So this is the organisation's address. And look, we've got a application reference. Please forward this email to the team responsible for managing accessible parking permit applications within the city of Boroondara. Blah, 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 blah.
That was gonna be my question, is it the same department in every council that handles it?
Jason, permits officer. Not necessarily, because every council is set up differently.
Loving it.
But think about it though, there will often be something which is very similar to ours in terms of regulatory. So we might refer to it as civic services, they obviously refer to it as city safety, security and amenity. If you think about the local laws, it's called amenity local law. So you can see some of the language is similar.
Obviously, the permits officer.
Permits officer, but the structure of the organisation might be just that little. As long as we can sort of validate and verify that they've provided us with a reference number. So they're actually giving us a heads up that this was actually redirected from there. So why don't we see how we can find it? We've got the reference, so I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to come in here and I'm now going to do search. I'm going to search applications. So you can see here you can search applications, applicants, actual permits if you've got an actual permit number, organisations. We're going to search applications because we've got an application reference number. Search. There it is. St Vinny's. So, this is the applicant. Council City of Boroondara, draft 1 permit. Dispatch to council. This is the permit number. So this has actually now been approved, which means we can actually simply go in and resolve the CRM case.
To notify the customers how to come up.
This has already been all done. You'll see here that it's actually been status dispatched to council. So the fact that it's actually already got that means that that SMS notification's already been sent off to the customer.
Have they collected it?
That's a good question.
No, I would say,
Would have been
status is at council for collection or something.
Yeah, so
No,
this is
we-
dispatched to council. So I would say that we're waiting to receive it. So what would happen, it might actually be sitting there in the mail, we're just needing to go through and then actually mark it as being received.
Yeah.
And as soon as we mark it as received, bang, notification's off. But we've got everything in here, we've got the permit number. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this permit number here, I'm gonna close this, and I'm gonna come back into my CRM case, because I don't need to do this anymore. So I've now got process in DOT portal and the copy, lovely. So code D, organisation, 1 permit or permit number 1. Done.
So, I know, I registered that case, so was that accidentally sent to the city of Melbourne?
Yes, so
Right,
when
so
they
that's
filled
why
in the
it's right.
application, because the St Vincent's have, their head office is
Yes.
actually in Nicholson Street,
East Melbourne.
but they've also got one,
Right.
like, yeah, nearby. So it might be that it was registered to the head office,
Yeah.
but it's not actually for them. So we can go through, first response been sent, we'll say yes, because they've now received that notification. They know it's there, they know what's going on. So, we can now just save that and we can now resolve the case. Okay, so there's now one more type that I want to show you, which is then that manual form. I think you can see that working through the portal is actually pretty easy in terms of just going in and marking them off. When we're looking at CRM, you can see there that we're going to have a whole mixture. So we had this one here, and just by doing a little bit of investigation work in the portal, we actually were able to determine that we didn't need that anymore. It had already been processed. Because it had been reassigned to us, so that guy was actually just doing a nice thing, just emailing us to give us the heads up. But because it was reassigned in the portal, it was already picked up by us and we had already processed it. Go us. So we're now resolved here. I want to find one that's got a manual form though, because we need to have a look at what they look like. Now, this is going to be another organisational one. Here we go. Let's look at this one.
Should you sign it to yourself so Joanne has to?
I don't think there's anyone in there at the moment.
Oh,
Okay, so this is what we've got. Residential address, 6A Game Street, Blackburn. But she's got a PO box in Harbour.
I'm pushing why?
Yeah, they're trying to make it difficult for
And have a
themselves.
look here, also, make note, send to applicant address. Format, yeah, send to applicant address, what do they want?
They want to go to that PO box in Harbour.
So, we've got it signed off, they've gone out to this place in Hawthorne East.
Looks like it's two different names as well. There's a Meredith and a India.
So you've got Meredith Masterman. So, the actual applicant is Meredith Francis Masterman. But the residential address is 6A Game Street, Blackburn. Nominated representative is Ian Masterman, family, and then that there. You'll see that it's a new application, so it's not applicable. What do you think we're going to do with this though?
Enter into the form.
Can we reassign it to libels?
This hasn't even started off. This hasn't even gone anywhere. This is strictly just a manual form. So we could actually potentially get it started and then we could actually get it reassigned to one else.
But
Yep.
she obviously, what if she's moving or something, you know what I mean?
So this is probably where if we
All the
well this is
All customer.
this is where we also first thing first check PNL. Let's check the database and let's actually see if she has a record actually here because I'm not quite sure why she put down that address. All the other references, like the PO box is in Hartwell, the doctor that she went to is in Hawthorne East. So there's a lot of association with the area, we just need to determine what is actually going on. So let's get out of here, and this is, I should have opened up PNR earlier, so my bad, it's going to take 10 years.
And on my laptop, Hannah wasn't like off to the
I
side.
know, mine does too, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like my Outlook, whenever I've got my laptop on, my Outlook just disappears.
No, it's on like another
Side
screen.
screen.
I used to have the issue where my WebEx, the little glass box part of WebEx, would always disappear up to another screen. And I was continually dragging it back.
Oh yeah,
to where-
my WebEx also goes up to my other screen as well.
My WebEx.
It was
Logs me out,
always WebEx.
It logs me out and I think, oh, I'm not ready because I'm logged out.
Well, I don't notice until I go to my break and I'm like, how long have I not been logged into anything?
Okay, so, back to task at hand, we need to now go and confirm what the hell is going on. So, Meredith Masterman, let's see if we can find her. Let's get a name inquiry up. There she is.
And there's that hot button address
Uh-huh. But what's the association? Simply service address. Nothing else. You also see 7344, which means that 20th of the 11th, 2022. So she obviously sent in something, and we've had to create a name record for her, but she potentially doesn't actually live in the area. I can see that this is a fairly new record, so I am just going to go back and just see if we do go. There we go. Do you think this might be her?
Could be that she's moved from Camberwell.
Correct.
And she's kept her old PO box.
So we've got owner, we've got
Does she have the date of birth on the hard copy form?
24th of the 2nd, 52. 24th of the 2nd, 52.
I say it's the same person.
It's just too much to change her address, so she just kept everything.
I'd probably say the same too. However, because we also don't have these contact details in here, we can say that there is a default postal address being 12 Kalang Road. We need to call the customer. Meredith, where do you live? You know, we do have a reference for you being here in Kalang Road. Are you still at that address? Or it might be that they're renovating. So she might have actually just moved out to Blackburn while the house is being renovated. So technically she actually does live there, but on the application, she says, oh, I'm not actually there at the moment. That's perfectly valid. In which case then we'll be saying, well, we'll get it against you Kalang Road. It just means though, that depending on what's gone into the application, that's where it's going to be mailed. So we'd be wanting to do that first, because we've got the hard copy form. So, but we've also then confirmed that there's some information that's not quite right. It doesn't match up to what we have. We've now found a second record for her, which validates against her birthday, etc. So we know that this is actually the one to use. We've gone 12 Kalang Road, we go, okay, now I need to give the customer a call. I don't have any contact details down here, so the best thing is, now that we've got some contact details, I can also put them in here. So don't be afraid to update the PNR records as well to make sure we have accurate data. So we can't go through and do this one in here. So probably this as well, I didn't assign it to myself. But you can see how when you go through though, you really don't quite know what you're going to get. And that's actually part of working in the channel. As you know with RPPs, all of that, you just don't quite know what you're going to get. We saw that we had a notification from the City of Melbourne. We saw that we had a manual form from someone that didn't even live in the area, potentially. You know, we're not doing very well. Let's have a look at this one. Frida. Okay, document links, renewal. We have got this information. 5 years or more, walking is slow, does the patient know?
So she's only gonna get 2 hours. What time?
Now, have a look at this though. She has got a DP number.
Yes.
DP 09413.
Yes.
So we actually do have one that's actually in our system now. So I can actually go and find it. Does everyone know how to search for a permit in PNR? Application process inquiry. And we're going to be using exactly this in our next session when we're covering off skip-ins. So we're going to be using exactly the same area because it's all permits are generated in the same place. Makes it really easy. So we've got that permit number DP 09413. Here, so the expiry date, 10th of November, 2023.
It's actually, yeah.
Yep. So we're good with it. What's wrong with it? Got all the information we need in here. We don't have a reference number. Send to applicant address. Okay. So we're now doing a renewal. Then we'll do an application. We're going to renew an existing permit. We're going to check eligibility. Then we're going to start. Support needs. Does the applicant need to use a mobility aid device that has more than one contact point with the ground? Walking frame and a stick.
I think up was the yes on the
Sorry?
up one that there at the bottom.
Yeah. Does the person have a significant such as they require to use a mobility aid or a device, and that parking bay is insufficient in size? Yes. Driver passenger, yes. A regular patient, yes. Okay. Checking eligibility. Do they?
Yes.
Yes. How long is it going to be? Five years or more. It is ongoing and will last more than 5 years. Yes. Next.
So it's more than 5 years since it's permanent.
Yes. So, based on that, eligible. Great. So this is what the customer would be saying. We're going to renew an accessible parking permit. So you're saying we're actually now doing it from start to finish. Next. Obviously it goes through all of these here, privacy statements, etc. We are basically now putting this in, acting on behalf of the customer. If you're renewing, blah, 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 blah. We need to select the one that matches. Where was that? Oh, right one. There you go. DP 09413. Local council. City of Burundara. And the expiry date. 10th of the 11th, 23. 10. 2023. Let me hit next. So, we're not the permit holder, but we are helping the permit holder renew.
Oh, we have what?
We don't have it.
Yep. We can just do generic because we've got the contact information on the form. We're simply filling this in on behalf of the customer. So we actually don't necessarily need to validate these details in here. It's actually on the forms anyway.
So we don't need to
Inside.
fire off the ball.
So in saying that though, we're saying if we're helping the permit holder renew their permit, have we actually got any other information in here? No, we don't. So there's no one helping her out apart from us. So we can get around it that way. So, City of Burundara, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do we know of any changes since the current permit was issued? Is the applicant name or address changed? Not that we could see. They're still same address. Floor, yeah, 1 at 15 Dickens Street, Glen Iris, same address. So we're good to go. No, next. So we're now filling in the personal information that that customer has supplied to us.
You put down everything on
What's that there?
24th of the 2nd, 1952.
Oh,
If
you're
that is
good.
correct.
That's correct, I reckon.
Where was that?
No, the first one.
That's David's signature.
Oh, sorry.
Under her name,
There we go.
Oh.
No, that's the previous one.
Dan.
lot of toing and throwing here, as you see.
It'd be easy on.
Back up,
two
both.
screens.
Yeah. Much easier on two
There it
screens.
is.
There we
Up.
go.
Yes, there it is.
f10@optusnet.com.au. iPhone 372347. Just gonna make sure that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
342327. Oh, 372.
Yeah.
My dyslexia's alive and well. 372347. 72347. 372347. That is correct. 372.
Perfect.
Yep, okay, good. Obviously, that's going to trigger off the SMS notification, but we need to make sure that we're getting it right. So we're going to just process it now. We've now got the residential address, so 1 at 15. Dickens. What the Dickens? Glen Iris. There we are. Is your mailing address the same?
So that SMS that you got, just to say it's been approved. You said it's gonna
Yes.
trigger an SMS,
Yep.
it's not to say it's a cancel, it's just been approved.
It's, yeah.
And it's been sent, right.
We're not quite there yet, we're
Yeah.
about to get there. And it is. She hasn't put in an alternate post office box, so we can just hit next. And you'll see how we've now got this functional assessment, so we're now gonna have to go through and do that too. So, local council, City of Burundara, residential address, we've got that from the form, next. Yes. Yes. And this would be very similar to a manual form. So if you've got a new application that's a manual form, you're doing exactly the same thing. You're actually going in and doing essentially the whole entire application on behalf of the applicant. So you've obviously got these here, the fitness to drive awareness. We can just skip through that because the medical practitioner's already signed off. So we've got the information here as a summary. We're all good with all this information and we know all about it. And I declare it's true and complete because we've got it on the form. I'm going to submit it. And look what's happened. We've got a reference number. So, what do you think we're going to do with that?
Put it in case.
Oh,
Put it in case.
we're not going to use that reference number. But what we're going to do is we're going to use that reference number to recall the application. Because guess what? We get to now do functional assessment. So,
Go to the doctor.
yep, we now play doctor. So we've just played applicant, we're now playing doctor. So we've got that there now. So all I can do here is in the permit,
So it does say, sorry, just go down one.
we've sent this reference in the text message. So she's now gone, oh, there's my application reference number. So she technically would then be going off to the GP, go, here's my application reference number, can you recall my application, can you fill it all in, and can you submit it? She's done it on the manual form, so we're gonna do it for her. You can see how we can print this page or email it, but we've now got this reference number, so this is the most important part, so let's just copy that there. And I'm gonna do a search. And look, see how we've got this one here,
Awaiting
so,
functional.
see how it's now awaiting functional assessment? So what I actually need to do is manual form. Is there an application reference? Yes, there is. What is it? It's that. Applications found. So we're now going to review it. So now we go down and fill in the pages.
I see why we have two screens.
Correct. Oh, thank God, at least it's stamped and not handwritten.
That's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, especially with doctor's handwriting, I swear,
Yeah.
it is the worst.
Smaller.
That's
Definitely first name.
Alex,
Oh, sorry,
that's the name.
wrong is.
Attention to one thing each.
It's true, isn't it? Okay, the APRA registration number. Someone want to write this down? MED 0001621021021.
So I've got MED 0001621021021.
2.
162
1621021. 1021. Practice name.
Daily Women's.
Daily Women's Clinic. Malvern Road, Malvern 344.
The only problem with the stamp is it makes everything so small.
Yeah.
Catch up though.
Got the practice phone number. 0395251941. Practice email. Now we've got these. They are a regular patient, so now we're starting to input this information in here. They are a regular patient. Do they hold a live driver's license? Yes, they do. Now we're going to the assessment questions. Assessment questions.
So if that just said stick, and it didn't say mobility scooter, we would say no.
They would not be
Stick is a-
eligible, correct. But the fact that they've got walking frame,
Is,
2 points or more, we're good to go, good to go. Yes, the parking bay is insufficient in size. Which mobility aid do they use? Walking frame. Okay, so walking is slow. Now, where was that question?
Yeah, continuous. It's a question about their footnote. No.
down.
Too fast. Yes, does the patient significantly cognitive enable
No.
without a
Perfect. That's a no. What else do we have? Walking is slow.
I think they need to get
Approximately how long will it last?
to 5 years.
Don't understand. Practitioner declaration. Yeah, 27th of the 9th.
But do you get people who used to have a category 1, who with the new system are now only a double?
Yep.
And I suppose they're not very happy about that. Ooh.
Oh, a small, oh, you know why? Because I spelled the surname, small ion instead of I.
I thought it was the LED number.
So it's done the automatic validation, which is really good.
Does that go into our dashboard now? It's like a third step.
Correct. So, because we've actually put that in as a renewal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Yes, we have the current permit details. Yes, the expiry date's correct. 10th of November 2023, and we know from way up here. 23. Yeah, absolutely fine. Application details. Yes, they are the permit holder. They were the applicant, and they are the permit holder. Medical practitioners verified. Great. Next.
Oh.
Possible duplicates found. Please review the possible duplicate. If this application is a duplicate, then you should decline it. 2nd of October.
Yes, sir. Somebody wrote it down.
Possibly.
Or did the doctor also do
Do
it
it
online?
It's very possible. Very possible. So we've actually got an existing one here. So
Yes.
now we've gone through all of this, but yes, this is a duplicate. Because we can say that that's there.
Oh, we're gonna cancel that one or the one that we?
No, we cancelled the one we've done.
Yeah, because we've gone through this and it's now saying, I've already got one in the system, so what do you want to do with this one?
You don't want to cancel this one, can you? Because that's yesterday's.
Well, we're only creating it today. So we're cancelling the one that we've just created now.
We're not
Knowing
creating- yeah,
that
not-
there's now an existing one that was logged in yesterday. So we are going to mark this off as being a duplicate. And you know what?
Don't even,
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to send the notification to us. They don't need to know about it. It's
They'll
just
get
gonna confuse
confused
the
and
issue.
then it'll just.
Yeah, correct. Now, do you know if any of you have been rostered onto permits this afternoon?
We all are, I think it's just.
You all?
It just
It
says.
says training and
Training.
practice.
And are you right through for the full day?
No.
I'm on E2E up.
Oh, it's just E2E up.
Yeah, because you'll be up until 12, but what are you after that?
E2E.
No?
E2E.
Well, we could just probably put ourselves on.
Doesn't look like there's nothing like the 6 people.
Yeah,
Oh,
there-
yeah.
and that's the thing, there really won't be. So what I want you guys to do though now is to at least I'm going to just put up some details for the training environment. We've got some permit details and I want you to log in.
I delete some skip ins, though.
Sorry.
I delete
Oh,
some
you
skip
do.
ins. You do good. But I never actually got official training.
Did you know?
No, I had Beck sit next to me and go, this is what you need to
Okay.
make sure you do.
Gotcha.
And then I read the guide that you sent through in the email, and I'm like, oh, this is all things that Beck didn't tell me.
Alright. Have a look here.
Is that the test environment?
I don't know. Sounds like a dog barking, it's actually going nuts.
No, someone talking.
Yeah. It's not loading up somewhere.
Yeah, I think they're in the invitation.
Yeah, that's actually where I just was.
DPP council user plus one, is that what we're?
I'm signed under, no, I've got more of them.
Oh, and there's plus two.
So that's the full training resource. So you'll see that that's already attached into their meeting invite, so you can access it there. Feel free to print it out, do whatever you need to. But this will take you through absolutely step by step every single one. That's not the one though that I'm after.
And at the end, the presentation.
That's one just like that, right? council user +3@gmail.com, +4@gmail.com, +5@gmail.com. The password is a capital D, lowercase pp, at user and the number. Pick one, log in.
Does it go to that current one?
Let's say so.
Oh, hang on, what I'll do, no, let me just send you the link for the training portal.
Oh, soft plastics are back here.
What I'll do.
Literally, it's so funny, you watch it, it's like, we're all full, empty now.
Can you guys access the Canva?
Yeah.
Open up the invite, access the Canva, and go through from there, because you'll have the
Is it
link.
this one, it's called the training, parking training? No?
Yes, yep, so skip to the very last page.
We're in City
You're in, City
Casey.
and Casey. And what I might do, I'm just gonna put the light back on, if that's all right.
Owl.
Woo!
That's right.
All right, have you guys
How do you make it bigger?
got access into the portal? Patrick?
Yeah, they'll put in the
Perfect.
GP. Oh, did anyone do number 5?
We're 6.
Oh, okay. You're three? Cool. So just have a quick look at them. Have a look at your news, renews, replaces. So have a little play around. We've got a few minutes here, so.
We're doing reviews.
Just have a look at them. Do whatever you like. This is, as I said, this is a
It's
this
just
is
a
a
place,
test
so we can't
environment.
mess it up.
Correct. Correct. So the key trick though was I really wanted to show you those manual ones because that can really throw you off. So it's just understanding whereabouts in the applications we're at,
Okay.
whether
I
it's
would
right.
have thrown it the duplicate part.
Sorry.
I would have thrown it that where it said it was a duplicate,
Yep.
huh?
But you saw then, and because we'd only just done it, we took it at face value. Should I have perhaps gone and done it before? Not necessarily. But now that I have gone through, I'm just going, well, that was a waste of time. But
Oh, she expires, yeah, so.
yeah, so have a little look through and see if you can work through some.
Oh. Well, half of them say, 5 years, I won't be around at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That would be my great aunt's reaction. Oh, yes, what do they think about it?
Here's a one, pen holder.
Locked by another.
Are you
Oh,
doing
they
it?
say which ones are locked.
Medical tech practitioners.
I'm loving this.